Welcome back. And thank you again for joining us on The Slide with your host, Tavares Bethel. This podcast aims to normalize important conversations that are required for our community, centered around topics such as education, justice, economics, and politics. However, before we can attempt to cross controversial seas, as you all know, we've been working for the last several months on building a leadership. Today, we are super excited because we have somebody now who is aptly prepared and qualified to pilot the ship. Today, we are joined by Mrs. Shakira Nicks. Shakira is a seasoned behavioral health leader, addiction professional, and Navy-trained substance abuse counselor with 22 years of distinguished service. Shakira, it's an honor to have you here with us today. Can you please tell us a little bit about your journey towards becoming the Deputy Director of the U.S. Navy Clinical Preceptorship Program?
Well, when I joined the Navy, I wasn't in the substance abuse at all. In fact, I didn't even know the military had a substance abuse program.
So what did you join the Navy as? How did that start for you? What was your first job in the Navy?
So my first job in the Navy I was actually aviation ordnance weapons for the Navy. And I joined and I did my first tour out in California because I always wanted to go to California. And after taking the test and going through boot camp and getting into the AO pipeline, one of the orders was for me to go to California. So that was where I did my first tour in California at VFA 122 out there. But it started with aviation.
What year was that when you made it out to California?
Oh, in 2000.
In 2000. So a couple of years before 9/11, or really actually the year prior to 9/11, you had already joined. How did 9/11 change your service?
It highlighted how important it was for me to do my job as a aviation ordnance man, because I remember when 9/11 happened and we had to load the bombs on I was working with F-18s, and we sent F-18s over to New York just to circle around. And I remember us, it was a training command, but we had to always be on the ready for whatever bombs or whatever was needed to support what was going on in New York. So, yeah.
Yes, that was for me. I was stationed at Fort Riley, Kansas. I joined the military in September of 2000, completed basic training at AIT. And so I was a private when 9/11 happened. And I was standing in my living room, in my little own quarters, post housing or whatever. And we were getting ready to go to the National Training Center just in preparation for deployments. And like Quincy, my homeboy Quincy called me and he said, "B, turn on the news. What you doing?" I was like, "I'm getting ready to go to the company, so we can get ready to go to the NTC." He said, "Well, I don't think that's happening." He said, "Turn on the TV." And when I turned on the TV, I saw that first plane fly into the World Trade Center. And I saw that second plane fly into the World Trade Center. And I was thinking to myself, man, we got issues.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, it was scary. I remember when it happened, and I was actually in my barracks room, and my mom called, and she actually told me that the plane crashed. But next thing you know, there was a knock on the door. Like, "Get up, we need to get ready, go to the hangar bay." And we had to get to work, and just loading and making sure the aircraft was armed and ready to go over to New York was a big deal at the time. And everybody was on such high alert. And me being a new person in the military and trying to understand what was going on, it was like, oh shoot, I'm really in the military right now.
So now after that initial reality check, hey, we had it. Right, it's some more stuff that's about to go on.
Yeah.
I assume that at some point your enlistment expired and you chose to stay. Why did you choose to stay?
Oh, well, for one, aviation ordnance in the Navy had a really big bonus, and we would get paid a lot of money. But at the same time, I was on deployment when my first enlistment was over, and that's when I was stationed on the Kennedy. And it was, I don't know, the camaraderie as well, because I was with a lot of people who was at my first command at VFA 122 were either in my carry air group which is a group of commands that deploys together on a carrier. And I had a lot of family and friends that they became. And I was like, you know what? I'm staying out here making money and with my friends. And at this point, I loved what I was doing also because in my mind, we were protecting the United States of America.
And definitely, and I can attest to that. I can attest to the comfort and the security that we felt as members of the United States Army, knowing that, those terrorists were out there in the Persian, knowing that we had air support and that we could have autonomy to move. It's huge. I understand. I'm kind of like you. My first deployment, I went to Kuwait. When I was in Kuwait, it was in the preparation for the inevitable Iraq campaign, which we didn't know when that was going to be. We were just on a training deployment. And I went out there and I trained with a group of guys, and then I came back to the country. And when I came back to the country, we got alerted that we were going to turn around, and they had been with us out of 90 days. We were going to go back to Iraq, and I had just got home. I had the option to either wait an additional 30 days since I just got back, but there was a group of guys that I had been training with. And it's crazy how you become a family in difficult situations. And in that difficult situation, we bonded. We became a family. Now I have a real family that's back just as much. But it was a Staff Sergeant Rosa. One time for that boy, Sergeant Major Alejandro Rosa Solis. He came to me. He said, B, we need you. He said, can you train with us? And we were going into an environment where the belief was that we were going to encounter chemical warfare. And I was the chemical operations specialist for my organization. Understanding what my responsibility was to my organization, also understanding what my responsibility was to my family, I had to make a choice. And I decided that I was going to do whatever I needed to do in order to be able to make that rotation with Charlie Rock, 70 Engineer Battalion head busters. And I did. I learned a lot of lessons in that effort. And you just don't get those. You just don't get those days back. What was it like? What was that environment like? I mean, it had to be kind of scary. I would assume it was kind of a scary environment.
It was actually a very scary environment because you're, like I said, you were out there and you're like, I remember at night just seeing the fire go across because of the fighting that was actually happening on the land and the oil fields burning out there, and we were on the carrier. And you could see it from a distance. We were literally 90 miles off the coast. And just being able to work around the clock for 12 hours, working 12-hour shifts. But that depends on if they still needed you up on the flight day. And most of the time, I know as the AOs, because it was like a family rate, a family job, we all wanted to be there to support each other, even in the exhaustion. And we would work over 12 hours. And I remember eating bag lunches, and there was no more going downstairs and sitting down and eating in the galley area. Excuse me. We were eating upstairs too, just so that we could keep that loading weapons and supporting you, Army and Marine Corps that were on boots on the ground, what we call.
When you mentioned that bag lunch, it appears that bag lunch was a traumatic experience to you. But it was the norm for us. I'm like, when she said bag lunch, I'm like, man, we eat MREs all the time. Like, I think I got 4 years worth of MREs in my body right now that I'm praying that God deliver me from, because I done ate so many MREs during the course of a career. You told us a story, and I know sometimes it's hard to capture that same energy, but it was a very, very intense story that will kind of segue into the next topic or the next area that we wanted to be able to discuss. But could you again kind of detail what was your experience like on the Kennedy? What is the most traumatic experience that you had on the Kennedy?
Right. So the most traumatic experience I've had on the Kennedy was when this was like during the bomb where the fishing boats was running into the carriers and blowing up or exploding. And the Cole is an example of that, the USS Cole. Well, we actually hit one on board the USS Kennedy at the time. And I remember when we hit the boat, we were actually launching planes off the bow. I was working on the bow of the ship. And in the midst of us launching this aircraft off of the bow of the ship, a fishing boat actually hit the the side of the aircraft carrier, and we actually ran it over. I remember the boat turning so hard that the airplanes were getting ready to take off, but everything stopped because the pilots was trying to hold on to the brakes so that it wouldn't hit the people that were on the aircraft carrier. And I remember grabbing onto a pad eye of the carrier or the ship, and holding on for dear life because the ship was turning and aircraft carriers are sliding, and I could fall into the ocean. And I remember just hearing all the noise, but having the ship come back up right, and being able to still launch because it still had to support what was going on the land. But it was very traumatic.
So even in the midst of all of that difficulty,
Yeah.
there still was a mission to be accomplished, and you still had a requirement for that mission that had to be fulfilled.
Yes.
And there was no excuse that you could have provided. There was nothing that you could have done. You couldn't have called in sick. You couldn't have told them that you weren't going to be able to do what they needed to do in order to be able to make sure that the planes launched. Well, there was no recourse for you.
No, absolutely not, because the mission was, our job was to support the Marine and Army, the folks, the boots on the ground. And we would get up the next day and we had to still launch. We had to work. I do remember a plane coming on board, and they were relieving the admiral. And I don't remember us. To be honest, the only thing I remember is working after that. I do remember that people were coming on board and people were relieved of their duties, but it did not stop the mission. It just was a change of the guard. That was it. You know.
So even once y'all got back and y'all were back at base, were there any specific types of counselings or therapies that were scheduled for your organization in order to be able to address the traumas that you dealt with when you were underway?
To be honest with you, I can't remember. It's not to say that they didn't provide it, because I was so young and I was ready to get from around these people because I've been on a ship with them for 6 months or longer at the time. I don't remember the services if they were provided, and I didn't receive those type of services, not at all.
Shout out to the Army, because what I will say is my team in 2005 encountered an IED in which First Sergeant Thomas Millsap lost his life, and my team witnessed it. When my team witnessed it, they pulled my whole team from the field and they sent us to an immediate triage. So good job to the United States Army for attempting to be able to address mental health concerns. Prior to going to Iraq in OIF 1, there was a concept that the Army discussed called battle mind. Battle mind was how we could turn hypervigilance and maintain hypervigilance when we were in actual difficulties. But what the Army also discovered was that when we returned back to our post, they had no system by which they could turn the hypervigilance off. And so it led to a lot of individuals having discord within inside of their homes. Several years later, I want to say maybe around 2010, the Army continued to study and improve, and they cultivated something called the Military Resilience Program, or the Army Military Resilience Training Program, which is a phenomenal program. I couldn't wait to get to the Military Resilience Training Program because I knew that it was something that I needed in order to be able to help me address some of the traumas that I experienced while I was on various deployments. So now I want to shift gears a little bit, because now in your professional world, you deal a lot with behavioral health. What do you do now in your professional life? And can you kind of give us a synopsis of the benefits of mental health counseling?
Okay, yeah. So today I'm the deputy director for the Navy's clinical preceptorship program, and the program is tailored around mentoring naval counselors who go through like this. It's a substance abuse rehabilitation program that mentor the counselors in their clinical skill and development. That's what I did today.
So you develop the leaders that are responsible.
I hired the leaders to develop the counselors that the Navy has sent through this pipeline to become counselors for people in the military. Doesn't matter which branch you're in.
Wow.
To who are dealing with substance abuse.
Yes. Because we know coming out of some of those difficulties and some of those deployments, sometimes we don't all have the appropriate coping mechanisms in order to be able to continue to function the way that life requires.
Yeah.
Right? I tell everybody, we go get our heart checked and our kidney and our liver checked.
Yeah.
But it's such a stigma that's associated with getting our mind checked. Why do you believe that is so? Or what's behind that?
I believe it stems from where we came from, where we grew up. And to be honest with you, when I was growing up, I grew up in a small town in South Carolina. It's called Utahville. Utahville with an E, Utahville, South Carolina. And I've never heard of a substance abuse program or a treatment or anything like that growing up in where I'm from, but I have seen it. I've seen people on drugs or alcohol, and I see what it have done to them. And I see people who have dealt with trauma, but I'm coming from a praying community, so a lot of things is covered with prayer or going to church or religion, and so there's nobody that gonna say out loud, "Hey, your uncle is an alcoholic or a drug addict." It's just, "Oh, he like that. Just pray for him, child." So that's how I grew up.
Exactly.
But now, as an adult, we see that prayer is one part of the system that has to be implemented in order to help a person achieve change.
Yeah.
But then there's also some tangible things that a person has to do as well. How do you develop a strategy to be able to tackle some of these things? A lot of times people don't want to even address that they have these issues. So how do you develop a strategy, or how do you help cultivate a plan to help someone address their mental health or their behavioral health?
To develop a strategy, you first have to, one, align it with where you're trying to grow or go in this newfound life-changing thing that you're trying to do. So when I would think of developing a life-changing strategy, it needs to be in alignment to where I'm growing into or where I want to go. So you understand what I'm saying? Yeah.
So adopting a strategy that'll give me the opportunity to be successful at my next station in life. So the things that I did up to this point, then now I can kind of help to mitigate some of those things in order to be able to continue to grow in the direction that I'm striving towards.
And you do that, and it's not just when it's putting together a plan that's going to help you get there. And there's like micro shifts. If you just do one thing at a time, 1 hour at a time, 1 minute at a time. Don't try to eat this entire elephant or swallow an elephant, but take bits and pieces of this elephant and go into the direction that you're trying to move into, or to be this person you're trying to become.
And I think what you just articulated was so beautiful. When I spent time with your husband, maybe just a few days ago, and he was talking about, what does correct learning look like? You do something wrong, and then you do something right. That's the effect of learning has taken place. So I guess kind of in the same vein as you're sharing, you're not going to get there. You're not going to get there in one effort. It's going to take some time. It's going to take some opportunity to learn and listen.
And part of that is just being patient with oneself, because we are, I like to call it the McDonald's effect. We want everything to happen fast. And when it comes to life-changing strategies, you have to realize that it is a strategy. To have a strategy means to have a plan. To have a plan is to mean to do one thing at a time, one thing slowly but surely. You're going to plan to do this at a certain day or at a certain time, at a certain minute, or I'm just focused on this. To focus on one thing is going to be really important for a life-changing strategy.
Thank you. That's amazing, and that's beautiful. When I think about what you're saying in the vein in which you're speaking, I think about, when I'm in conversation and dialogue with individuals, and the person will say, you made me mad, right? Now, me personally, I don't necessarily believe that I can make you mad. I believe I can give you the foundation that you need to express what you always wanted to express anyway. But I don't personally believe that I can control your anger. So for me, I believe that I need to have developed a effective coping mechanism that will also allow me to be able to identify my triggers and then mitigate my triggers. How do we manage triggers? What is a trigger and how do we manage it?
So a trigger is you can view a trigger as like a cue. But to go back to something you said, somebody make you mad or made me mad. First of all, no one can make you do anything. You made a choice to be upset by either what I said, what I did, or how I did something. But it was your choice. I didn't make you do anything. But to manage that is where the trigger come in. It's what cue did my body gave me to make me get upset with you? Just acknowledging where that came from. It's an emotion. It always stems from an emotion. And just acknowledging where that hurt matters. Where did it stem from? Where did it come from? Is it something that was inherited in a way that you learn about managing emotions? Because a lot of times emotions are a taught behavior. I learned this from my mom. If you don't listen to what I say or you don't do what I want you to do, I can yell at you. Not that that's how my mom is. I just use that as an example. But we tend to take a lot of things from our environment that we grew up in, and we don't realize that this needs to shift as an adult because I'm no longer a child. I have to grow up now and learn a different strategy. And that's part of the life-changing strategy, is to acknowledging that this trigger exists for a reason. And I need to address it.
And when I was in that military resilience training program, we talked a lot about icebergs and what an iceberg belief is. And what we see is that, I'm being triggered at a surface level.
Right.
I'm in a dialogue. You said something. It triggered me. But where the trigger impacted or what the trigger affected was something that was deep seated inside of me that came from maybe years or generations ago. Ago even. So now what I have to do is challenge myself once I cultivated the appropriate skill to be able to identify the trigger and mitigate the trigger. I got to be real with myself. I ask myself, is this value that I'm holding on to still of the same relative worth, or is it something that I need to be able to disregard? Which leads me to the next question that I would like to ask you, which is centered around value systems. And what is a value system, and how do we properly evaluate it to know if it has worn out of its efficacy? It might be time for me to let this thing go and move on to something new in life instead of allowing myself to be made mad by something that no longer has any value at all.
Right. No, that's a really good question too, because it really made me think when you asked that question. Because value is something to me that it cannot be compromised. And I say that because if I have a value instilled in me, and it's almost like it's my North Star. The North Star, you heard of it? Like, it's my guide to who I want to be or become. It goes back to this life-changing decision that I've made about myself. And to have my values aligned with who I am becoming is going to be important, because it cannot be compromised by anything you say, you do. And it always have to be centered around the way I make my decisions, the way how I value or I act, my behaviors, or where it all has to be something healthy that's going to help me get to my ending goal, which is the new person who I'm becoming. It's almost like it's a transformation. Like, you can't make Shakira mad anymore by calling her names or picking at her affect. You have to gonna have to dig deeper. But because I have this transformed mind, and there is just, it cannot be compromised.
Man, thank you so much. And we're going to definitely have to, we're going to need several iterations of this wisdom, because, we learn from repetition. And the first time that we experience a thing, its awareness is created, but what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to come back and we're going to have to visit more in order to be able to allow people to continue to build on the wisdom that you're sharing. Because a lot of individuals, and that's the need of understanding where coming from that little town in South Carolina to arriving as the deputy director of the U.S. Navy Clinical preceptorship program, it a lot of stuff that took place in there that kind of helped develop, what that North Star looks like. So now, based on where you came from, the young woman at 20 that joined the Navy, to the mature woman that's sitting here today, where is this going? Where do you see yourself, or where are you trying to go with this life, or with your program that you're currently leading and developing?
Oh, that's a good question too. Um, so from where I came from to where I'm at today, I'm just now getting in a position to where I have accepted who I've become. And I say that because um, when I first left Utahville, South Carolina, and I joined the military, I left Utahville, South Carolina with something instilled in me as you are a strong woman and you were raised by a strong woman. So always carry yourself as a strong woman. But when I joined the military, I was in a predominantly male environment. And being in the Navy, it's more Caucasians than it is African American people. And I realized in there that my skin color had mattered at some point in decisions that were made. It wasn't said out loud. It's almost like this invisible world that was happening. But I still had to tell myself, you are a strong, like, beautiful woman, and you could get through this. But a lot of things tore me down just being in the military, working around men, because they, because it was a predominantly male's job, I got overlooked by a lot of things because I was a woman working in a predominantly male job, and they saw me as almost like a weakling. And I had to always carry myself differently around them because I knew that exist in their mind. And I had to read more books and get more involved in the conversations. And it it took a lot out of me because I began at times to see myself as how they begin to see me. And I'm happy that I've had other AO women that were in the rate, and I saw them, oh, you're leading a load, I'm leading a load too, girl. And we kind of encouraged each other while we were in the military, and we became a family. And even though, the brothers, they were there. I say the brothers because they were both white and black, but they were all brothers. And they begin to respect you after you can stand up for yourself and you could say what was going on in the book without even the book being open, because I have become knowledgeable, and then I become understanding of what it means to have a weapon system on an F-18 aircraft, and just being able to talk with confidence at the time. And I was also, I wasn't the highest ranking person in the room, but I had a lot of qualifications under my belt. And that was when people begin to respect you as you grow up. You may not have the rank on your shoulder, but you have the knowledge and the skill set to be able to hold a conversation about the weapon and what it's going to do, and how it impacts whatever mission that it's going to be in and on. And which leads me to being the deputy director of the clinical preceptorship program for the Navy. It was something, it's called imposter syndrome. And that's when you don't believe you should be where you are at today. Now, today, I am the deputy director of a program that is worldwide. And I have a total of 55 sites and 28 preceptors that work under me. And I had struggled with, when I first got the job, believing that I could do it, because I so used to fighting to get to where I want to be and to be seen. I didn't realize I have arrived. And it was like, I'm making sure that I'm double checking and making sure that the work is right. And I didn't want to feel like I would ask a question that was not smart or elite enough to be in the position that I was in. And so, you know, being able to call back home and talk to my mom, and her continuing to encourage me, to have a husband who's encouraging as well. In fact, he was the one that told me that I should have been a counselor and the reason why I'm in the program. But just taking off those layers of how others identified who I was as a human being or as a woman, and it helped me to become who I am today after I was able to strip myself of how others viewed me.
Mm, mm, mm. Thank you so much for being transparent and sharing that. And I pray that everyone who listens to her words can understand that you are enough. I think that's the major takeaway
Yes.
when you were speaking. It's two things that I took from what you just shared. You are enough, and a scripture, I believe it's in Leviticus, where it say, "I have refined thee, but not with the finer things like silver and brass, but in the furnace of affliction." So you've been through so much and so many trials and so much added to your overall package that now upon arrival you're ready to execute any challenge that is presented to you. You are enough. And for those viewers who are listening, I say to you too, you are enough. Though you may not be enough right now, because you still need to acquire some skills. It's some things that you got to do, because you can't just take Shakira's story and say, "Oh, I done arrived too." Hell no, it don't work like that, right? Right? It was almost sliding off of a boat into some water, right? It was going to a lot of school and
Yes.
doing a lot of executing a lot of tasks in order to be able to get to that point, in order to be able to express the greatness at the magnitude at which you're doing today. And for that, we thank you. We thank you for your leadership, the leadership that you're exercising right now in your program, and also the leadership that you bring to this era in life. Again, the leaders that have the opportunity to come through the slide, even though we at the ground floor, I'm bringing y'all titans, you know what I'm saying, that's coming through it. And so what I recommend that y'all do is like, share, click, subscribe, follow these individuals. So that way, as we journey through these next 10, 20 years worth of evolution and development, we can see those individuals who are laying a foundation for those things, for our success and for our upward mobility as a community. Thank you so much for what you do. Thank you for sharing a little bit of your Saturday coming down here and ride and gliding on the slide. As you all know, we're doing it and we're gonna continue to do it. It's a lot of challenges that we face as a community. If you are going to go get your liver checked, if you are going to go get your lungs or your heart or your blood pressure checked, while you down there, y'all know you're crazy as hell. Stop and see somebody about your mind. There's nothing wrong with it, right? And as we do these things, as we develop an understanding of those things that impact our psyche, then I think we can kind of make a little bit better life for ourselves as we carve out a better life.
Absolutely.
And again, thank you so much. Thank you for coming down here and
Thank you
spending
for
some time with us
having
on the
me.
slide.
Absolutely. It was an honor being on your show.
Thank you.